good morning to the future leaders who are visiting, leaders, whether it's in business, whether it's in government companies, whether it's in government, whether it's in our hospital. I welcome you and hope you're enjoying your vacation school, hoping you're enjoying your summer camp, and we are happy to have you here with us today. I usually, don't react to things that are written in newspapers. And in this case, by, sort of coincidence, I was browsing through a newspaper and I saw a letter to the editor. And it was written by Mr. Clive Hodge and had to do with one of the aspects of it was the government building. And the letter to the editor was entitled Straight from the Horse's Mouth or something, and had to do with statements made by one politician on one end and another politician at the other end. But I think it is important to clarify the whole issue surrounding this, like, government had to borrow 50 million guilders to finish the building. I don't know exactly where he wanted to fit it or what exactly was like this horrible thing, but I think people need to know the facts. Government sold the building to SZV in order to help clear the debt that government had to SZV. So if government kept the building, government would have still had a debt to SZV. On top of that, government, whether they sold it or kept it, anybody who wanted to use the building other than a chicken coop or a pigeon coop would have had to invest in the completion of the building. It all depends on what degree of finish or completeness that one would want to add to the building, that one would have to invest in the building. So government sold the building to SZV. That brought down the debt that government had to SZV. SZV will further make a profit by renting the building back to government at market value. So some people would say, but does that make sense? You own something and you sell it and then you rent it? Yes, it makes all sense in this case, because keeping it, we still had to complete the building and would still have a debt with SZV. Now we have brought down the debt to SZV, or we have erased the debt. We have brought down the debt to SZV, and by extension, we have brought down the debt to the pension fund as well. Renting the building from them would allow them to make money, make a profit on the investment that they have made. Now, where does the extra money come in? SZV has to invest an additional 16 million to finish the building and make it, if you want to call it, complete the building to move in. If you drive by, and I've promised the media that we would have a tour, I think the best time to do that, to get a feeling of where we are, would be early next week. I'm here for August Monday. So if you guys are here, we can go on August Monday. 1st of August, we can go and have a tour of the building. If you look at the outside, presently the wall is under construction. Presently a parking lot is being developed. There's cabling that still needs to go in. The improvements and partitions on the inside that needed to be completed. Work had to be done on the air conditioning, et cetera, et cetera. All of that comes with an additional price tag. On top of that investment that SZV is making, government, in order to move in, has to furnish the building, because most of the furniture that government offices are using cannot be utilized in that building because they can't fit. And the IT cabling and electrical cabling had to be redone because of faults and faultiness in the past and just having it there for 8 years. That is the reason why investments needed to be made. So this thing about politicians or government investing because there's some deal to be made, this is absolutely incorrect, false, and erroneous. We are entering into the campaign 2016. Well, some are already dead center into it, and then the fashionable thing would be to go somewhere on a radio station on the French side, say things, and then allow them to start living their own life. So I thought it was important, because people are reading it, to clarify where this entire matter has come about. The investments that are being made now in the building are open and transparent. They're there for everybody to see, those who wants to see them. And when we take a tour with the media, they would be able to further bring to the people some of the improvements that have been made and are being made. Nowhere, when government spoke in the past that they're getting ready to complete the building, was there any money set aside to build any fence or any wall around it. And when we had our first visit, and I can remember the head of facility management, when I talked about putting a decent wall, said, yeah, but we invested $2,500 or something like that in a fence. And I told him, well, you can take it down and sell it on auction, but we can't have the people wait for 8 years. And then finally, when their building is being opened, it's like a prison behind a barbed wire fence. I mean, no self-respecting government would do that to themselves and to the people. The parking garage that is projected next door did not start as yet, but as soon as civil servants start moving in there, we will have some 600 plus people working there. We're going to need parking for them and for the people who are visiting, so we are creating a limited amount of parking in the front, where originally we would have had no parking. Also to the sides and to the back, we will have parking. And for the time being, civil servants will have to continue using this parking area here, not for too long, because this will become part green area, part the new Parliament building, and we are projecting a bridge walk. The new Parliament building will be built on part of this location and where the government parking lot is, and would have a bridge connecting the two. So from the third floor, for instance, of the Parliament building, there will be a Skywalker bridge that would connect from this building over to the government building. The designs are ready and will be displayed soon if they have not already been shown to members of the media. But these are some of the plans that we are working on.
I was deceived about the nature of my job. I was abducted and sold. All my documents were confiscated and money was withheld from me. I was isolated and confined to one area. I was forced into prostitution. I was forced to lie to authorities and my family. Now that you know, what will you do?
You can help by calling the National Reporting Bureau on Human Trafficking at 542-1553 or send email to naticotip@gmail.com. Human trafficking and exploitation. Please report it.
Mr. Myers, garbage and dumping of garbage on the roadside in St. Peter's. I've just seen a number of Facebook pictures. Even employees working at the Ministry of Romy are now posting pictures where you have construction garbage posted, being thrown on the roadside. What is the ministry doing or the department doing when it comes to the inspectorate in order to get them to do their jobs?
Thank you, Bibi. Let me understand your question correct. For who to get to do the jobs, correct?
Inspectors.
The inspectors? That is something I have been addressing with the department head of the department in charge. We had conversations with the contractor responsible for the area. My way of moving forward, I think there needs to be also a public relation campaign. We did publish the collection schedules. It's on the website. It was in the newspaper. But I think we need to go on a public relation campaign in terms of, together with the community council police, the community council members in the area, to indicate to the residents of the area there's a time set for the collection of, for example, construction materials, bulk waste, and so forth, that there's a particular day to dispose of those things. And that is one aspect. And the next aspect, of course, and the department head indicated that he does not have enough inspectors to control the different districts. But there is a public relation aspect, and there is an aspect of the department basically doing more controls in particular districts. So those are the two avenues where we are approaching then to basically tackle this issue.
Thank you, Minister Myers.
Thank you very much for your questions. Bibi Alita Singh, the Daily Herald, you have the floor. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, Cedric. Good morning, ministers. Minister Gibson, is there an update on the division of assets and liabilities? Is that money coming to Simard anytime soon?
The update on that is that we had a video conference planned, as I explained last week, Monday, with the director of the cabinet of BZK of the Netherlands. And we all sat there to get the connection, and there was a no-show on the part of the Minister of Finance of Curacao. Following that, a decision was made that from the Netherlands, a letter will be directed to the Minister of Finance relative to this issue, because the Netherlands have expressed their desire to have this matter wrapped up before the elections. So in terms of when do I expect, that's the window. And having the Netherlands in our corner, joining us in pushing to have this money collected, which actually it has to be collected before December 31st. But we're aiming to see if that can be done before September 26th.
Thank you. Minister Myers, how is the situation proceeding with the business on Kimshaw Beach that needs to move? I know the parties won an injunction that they didn't have to move in the 14 days given. What is the situation at the moment? Of course, the parking lot will need to be finished as well.
Yeah. Again, this is something being done in conjunction with the Ministry of TIAT. The Ministry of TIAT, of course, is the ones that issued the business license. The business in question submitted an objection, and basically the injunction, the ruling of the court was, government, please address the issue, and once the issue is addressed, then if there's any litigation, that will be dealt with further. But the ministry, together with the Ministry of TIAT, is busy in the process responding to the objection that was submitted by the business. But in the meantime, the work can proceed.
Is there any way, or does government know how many cases like this that we have where people are in the wrong or occupying the wrong piece of land based on what they've been given?
Well, I think there should be more cooperation between the Ministry of ROMI, which is responsible for domain property, and the ministry, the Department of Economic Affairs, that issues business license, because all too often business license is issued for individuals to operate on domain property, and sometimes without pre-consultation with the Ministry of Rummy. So that's something we're working on, to have better cooperations between the two governments. Because at the end of the day, the persons that receive a business license, they receive it from government. To them, it does not matter, is we receive something from government, and they are under the assumption that everything is in order. So it lies on us to cooperate much better in that field.
Thank you.
Alida, thank you very much for your questions. Hilbert Hart, Today newspaper, good
Yeah.
morning. You have the floor.
Yeah, good morning. Minister Gibson, on June 10, you submitted a request for a loan to the CFT, and the CFT turned it down. What is the status of that loan request now?
Oh, that was addressed previously. It regards the capital expenditures budget. As you know, by virtue of balancing the budget this year, a total amount of 77 million became available for capital expenditures. Part of those capital expenditures, the money is already in the bank, 33.9.
Yeah.
The loan that you're referring to is a loan that is a difference between the total amount of capital expenditures, 77 million, and the 33.9 million.
Yeah, right.
And CFT position was, we are probably premature in requesting a loan for the difference, that they would like to see first how we are going to utilize the 33.9 million. And for that purposes, architects and engineers and planners are busy, because it does not happen overnight,
Yeah, right.
working out the details to be able to justify the spending of the 33.9. And subsequent to that, the CFT have informed us that once we have done that, then they will revisit the requests for the difference. It's a challenge because actually we have quite a lot of money to spend, and it is 6 months left in the year,
Yeah, I understand.
that the expectation is that all of it will not be used.
So I actually don't need a loan right now.
No, I'm not saying that at this point in time.
Yeah,
I'm
just-
trying to keep my eggs very close and very secure in my baskets.
Yeah, okay.
We'll see.
Okay. Another question is about how does the 2016 budget develop? I mean, there's been talk about that the casino fees that were supposed to be collected, that it wasn't really happening. What's the status of that?
People talk and people say a lot of things. And it's not because the money is not being collected. The issue was a legislative issue. And the receiver had to be provided with tools to be able to collect as they have the ability to collect any other taxes. And that ability, that right, they did not have. It required
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
legislation. That legislation now has been completed. That legislation, however, before the receiver of taxes can start, needs a 6 weeks period to see if the ombudsman
Yep.
is going to object to that legislation, as is the case with all legislation.
Yep.
That 6-week period ends August 12th. And I've promised the receiver of taxes that August 13th, I will be showing up at her doorstep with that
Okay.
completed legislation to do the job that she needs to
Okay.
do.
All right. Last question about the 2017 budget. Is that going to be on schedule for the first time in 6 years?
All I can say is that I'm doing my damnedest
I
to
know.
make sure that that happens, but I also realize, and I'm realistic enough to realize, that caca happens sometimes too.
Okay. Thank you.
Sorry. Thank you very much, Minister Gibson, for keeping it PG-13, considering our audience. Andrew Dick, The Daily Herald, good morning, you have the floor.
Good morning, ministers. Minister Jacobs, just on the vocational training school, the construction of the 4 classrooms, you said it had to be completed in February. What was the reason given by the contractor for not completing the work?
Good morning, Andrew. Yes, upon entering in November, I was told that this was under construction and it would be finalized. Of course, I got several calls between November and January. I mean, there was the first call I got in December with complaints or concerns that they're not seeing much work going on. I was told, well, it's December, and contractors usually go on vacation. So in January, when school resumed, etc., and everybody else was back after their break, I was again alerted, and I have to deal with my colleagues at VROMI and the companies that have to do the checking. So that was also brought to their attention then. Discussions started with the contractor. The contractor had some issues. There were some issues. I don't know the exact details of it. However, they had expected that they would be resolved. The contractor promised to get back on track. February, still not properly on track. March was issued an ultimatum, and then they made an agreement for him to continue. And to date, while he has restarted to some extent, we are not satisfied that this can be completed. The deadline date had been extended to August 31st for completion, and from what I have seen, that does not seem feasible nor possible unless they put double crews on overnight. So the department in charge has been instructed by my person to go to Plan B, which would be either a second, removing that contractor completely, or bringing in, he'd be having then to bring in them under his contract. So whatever that may be, again, that's under the purview of my VROMI colleagues at New Works. So they are the ones that will then work out what the actual steps will be and what steps will be taken against the contractor. But it is very imperative. I mean, we did have a situation, as I explained before, where 4 classes had to be housed over at Belvedere. During the course of the year, that ended up becoming quite tedious, and towards the last 2 to 3 months, they moved back to the campus at SMVTS, where, yes, you have the overcrowding, but of course, with some of the exam candidates coming to the end, there were less of them on campus, so they were able to manage it. But now to ask them to start up again with that same situation and then have, the number of graduates or the number of new students exceeding the number of graduates, we will have a problem. So we are looking at certain areas. We also have the Charles Leopold Bell School, which is slated to be refurbished and wouldn't need as long a time. And so we're hoping that towards the end of August or beginning of September, that can also be completed, in a sense as if we really need an emergency space, that could be able to alleviate, as the Education Care Center program is not ready to start in August. So we're looking, as I said, as a ministry, we have several challenges which have existed for years, and the pressure on being on to get them solved in an election year is always there, and I accept that that pressure is there, but we can only do what we can do. And the situation being what it is, you have one department of VROMI that is dealing with all the new works, and so they also have, I believe, challenges as it pertains to having enough personnel throughout the year to be able to carry out it as we, the ministers, are constantly demanding. So I have to be realistic in that as well. I have several projects slated to go through. The critical upgrades I mentioned, Prince William Alexander's breaking tomorrow. John Larmony Center is also slated to start within short, and the Charles Leopold Bell School. So that's a lot, and that's just from my ministry, this ministry. So yeah. And that also has the repercussions, because all these things have been in process, and many of these things had been tendered prior. Also coming out in tenders in this next couple of weeks is the maintenance at MPC, and all these things are going through the process at different stages. So the VROMI department is very, very busy with that. And then companies are charged to do the checking at these sites to make sure that, the contractors are kept up to speed. So it's quite challenging, and we're facing those challenges head on, and that's why I did not shy away from stating what is fact and looking at what can possibly be the scenario come August, so people don't say, but the minister didn't know this was going to happen. Well, we saw it coming, and we're trying to do what we can in the meantime.
Thank you, Minister. Minister Myers, on the GEBE, we know we were waiting on the board, the supervisory board to get, the positions filled. Any updates on that? Get the CEO and the CFO position filled?
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. We did receive something in writing from the Supervisory Board of Directors. That will be discussed in the Council of Ministers, the shareholder, tomorrow. And as soon as I have more information, I'll be glad to share it with you all.
With possible candidates?
With possible candidates, yeah.
Correct. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Bibi, you have the floor.
Thank you, Cedric. Minister Jacobs, I know I asked you this, but I need a definitive answer. Do you believe that we are going to be able to, our government is going to be able to finalize the SLA and everything with regards to the school busing, transportation, prior to school opening, or and that we don't face buses not working, children standing beside the road?
Good question. Seeing the delays in the discussion phase, which is so necessary in coming to agreements, I do not foresee it being finalized before the start of school. It had been the goal and the wish of the ministry to be able to say we have contracts now with the current providers, and then look forward to how we need to fix everything else. However, we cannot proceed until the necessary consultations happen, and those are scheduled to continue, during the course of the next 2 weeks.